All right, in this particular video, we're going to try to calculate the loan payment for any particular situation. And this is kind of a theme and variation of the compound interest formula and some of the other formulas that you see surrounding finance. And it's not hard to do, but just like other things, it's a little clunky, and I've got a couple of tricks to help speed this up. So let's take a look at this scenario right here. Let's say that you are making a loan of $2,400 and you have to pay it back quarterly over 3 years at an interest rate of 6%. Well, for me to really have you figure this out, we need to go ahead and give you the formula. And in the formula, R is going to be your regular payment. And up at the top of this formula, you're going to have P, which is how much you borrow, that's your principal. And then we have an I, and we'll talk about that in just a second on how you figure what I is. Now in the denominator, you are going to have 1 minus, and in parentheses, 1 plus I, and that is a negative exponent of n. So negative n is the power. All right, so let's break this formula down and figure out what each of these things really means. So the R is the regular payment, and 99 times out of 100, that's what you're going to be finding here. P is the principal, and that is the amount you borrow. Now, as for the I, this is what we call your periodic interest rate. Okay, so what does that periodic interest rate do for us? Well, that's your annual rate divided by the number of times that you compound per year. So much like the I in your compound interest formula, that is going to be calculated with some division. Okay, and lastly, we have this N, which is the number of payments. Okay, so let's kind of fill in some information from this and see if we can come up with how we find this out. Now, the regular payment, that's something you're trying to find here, so we'll use the formula to do that. The principal in this case for this problem is going to be $2,400. That's how much money you borrow. Your interest rate, your periodic rate, is your annual rate of 0.06. But since we are paying quarterly, you're going to divide that by 4. That's probably going to come out to be, well, I don't think it'll be that bad of a decimal, but it might be easier to just use a variable in the calculator. All right, now the number of payments that we have here, the N, is going to be 12. And the reason why it's going to be 12 is because we're paying this back quarterly over a 3-year time period. So let's go ahead and punch all this in. $2,400 times 0.06 over 4. And then we're going to divide this by 1 minus 1 plus 0.06 over 4. And then negative 12 is my power. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit icky here in terms of what I need to do for calculating this in the calculator. So I've got an emulator that's going to pop up here. Let me get that up and going, and there it is. Okay, so if I want to find what my I is, I'm going to take 0.06 and divide it by 4. And now I'm going to store this into variable I. Now this may look a little different than your calculator that you have, but it operates exactly the same way. So the keystrokes are pretty true here. Okay. All right, now let's do this formula and see what we can come up with. I'm going to take 2,400 times I, and that's going to give me my numerator, and you'll see that's 36. Then I'm going to divide that result, and I've got to do 2 sets of parentheses here. I have to do 1 minus, and then open up another set of parentheses and do my 1 plus I. I'm going to close that first set, and then I'm going to hit the exponent key and make that a negative 12. And then I'm going to close that other set of parentheses there. And this should give me my regular payment of $220.03, 220.03. So that is how you figure out your regular loan payment. Okay, that is good stuff to know. All right, let's take a look at another quick example here. I'm going to probably do this one real fast here. A car costs $22,000. After a down payment of $2,000, you're going to pay 36 monthly payments at 6% per year on the unpaid balance. Okay, so let's find out what that R is. Now my principal here, now the cost of the car was $22,000, but I want to remind you we made what's called a down payment. And that down payment is cash that you put up front that lowers the amount of money that you have to borrow over time. So that makes that $20,000. Okay, let's figure out what my I is really quick. It's going to be 0.06, and I have to divide by 12. Now, why did I know I had to divide by 12? Because in the problem, I'm dealing with monthly payments. And finally, I've got my N, and lucky for us, there wasn't much magic on that. I already know that's 36 monthly payments. So once again, I need to figure out what this R is. So it's $20,000 times my I, and then all over 1 minus 1 plus my I in parentheses to the negative 36. And I can figure out what that is using my calculator. So I'm going to change that I first. So 0.06 divided by 12. And we're going to store that into our I. And you see that's 0.5% there. So let's see if I can do this all at once here. In the numerator, I have $20,000 times I. And then I'm going to have to do 1 minus, and in another set of parentheses, 1 plus I. And then I have to raise that to the negative 36th power. And then I can finally get out of this. And that's about how it should look on your calculator if you want to type this all in one keystroke. You just got to be careful on those parentheses, because if you have the wrong parentheses in the wrong place, your calculator is going to give you an incorrect answer here. So 608 and what appears to be 44 if I look at this over the course of rounding. So $608. 608.44. There is our payment for that. Okay, so let's kind of look at this one. If you pay the same amount of on your loan each month, what will happen is the amount of interest will decrease over time because you're paying less on an interest on a lower unpaid balance, and that's what we call amortizing the loan. And in another video, we'll take a look and see how that works. But in the meantime, let's take a look at this. Here's an example that might scare you a little bit. We have a family that makes a $250,000 house purchase and puts down 30 grand. And then the mortgage terms say that the house is to be paid off monthly over 30 years at an interest rate of 6%. And let's answer these questions. Okay, so how much is the monthly payment? Well, once again, you'd have to figure out what your P is, which in this case is $220,000. You're financing $220,000 after you borrowed that much once you made the difference between the amount of the sale and your down payment there. Your I is going to be 0.06 over 12. Now, that's that yearly interest rate of 6%, and again, divided by 12 because we're paying monthly. What's our N here? Well, if you make 12 payments a year for 30 years and see it all the way to the end of the mortgage, you are going to make 360 payments over the course of time. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit and tell you what the result winds up to be. If you want to pause the video right now to figure it out on your own using the formula, you certainly can. But what I recommend here is that you pause the video and come back to me here in a second. Okay, so now here's your spoiler alert. If you did this correctly, then your payment is $1,319.01. And how much will the family pay altogether over the life of the loan? Well, that's going to be 1319.01 times 360. That's how much money you are going to pay over the life of the loan. Let's find out what that is, because that's pretty serious stuff. 1319.01 times 360. Oh my goodness, you're going to pay $474,843.60. Can't forget that 60 cents. So 474,000, let me make sure I got the number correct here. 843 and 60. Oh my heavens. That is like buying a whole new house. Now, you're going to see this when you close on your first house, and it's going to scare the daylights out of you, but at some point you're going to have to understand that, oh my goodness, this just is what it is. I mean, think about it. You're paying 6% on a big purchase over 30 years, and it's going to take up a lot of interest payments here. Well, how much interest will you wind up paying? Well, you can find that out by taking out how much you borrowed, which is $220,000. And a quick little bit of math will see that you're going to pay $254,843.60 over the life of the mortgage. So again, you're like buying two houses here, which is a little scary when you think about it. All right, now lastly, how much interest is paid in the first monthly payment? Well, the way to find that out is to take your amount that you owe, which is the $220,000, and you multiply it by your I, your 0.06 over 12. That's how much interest that you owe the bank in your first monthly payment. And here's a little horrifying fact. You're going to pay $1,100 in interest just on that first mortgage payment. And in the next video, we're going to discuss what happens when you have to make an amortization table to see how this works.